We anticipate in the next 10 to 12 years, approximately 8 to 6 million Hispanics coming into the United States and 41 million Asians. You have been the majority minority for 400 years in this country. You have been the number 2 population for 400 years. You're going to get kicked out of being number 2. You're going to go down and become number 4. Now, common sense, even a third grade education would tell you, if you didn't get anything when you were number 2, you all jumped ahead of me, but anyway, you can guess what you're going to get when you become number 4.
President Biden, do you support reparations?
Well, what I mean, which I haven't spoken in this for a chance. Number one, the reason we're the country we are is because of immigration. We've been able to cherry pick the best from every single kind. The people who come here have determination, resilience. They are ready to stand up and work like the devil. We have 24 of our 100 children in our school today is Hispanic. The idea that we are going to walk away and not provide every opportunity for them is that not only stupid and immoral, but is bad for America. They are the future of America. Such systemic racism that has plagued our nation for far, far too long. I said that over the course of the past year that the blinders have been taken off the nation, the American people. What many Americans didn't see or had simply refused to see couldn't be ignored any longer. Those 8 minutes and 46 seconds that took George Floyd's life opened the eyes of millions of Americans and millions of people around all over the world. It was the knee on the neck of justice, and it wouldn't be forgotten. It's not white Americans' fault, but just a fact.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farm. Not only that, today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
We are owed $104 trillion on the very low end, plus $735 billion recurring. This number does not include the cost of about 50 Black Wall Streets that were decimated, nor compound interest from 2017 when Sean D. Rochester's book, The Black Tax, was published, nor the cost of Black life, nor the cost of living increases, nor the war on drugs, nor the current day pandemic. The number I'm working with is for slavery, Jim Crow, and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage in the country our ancestors built with their lives. If you believe in this number as I do and would like to join me in the fight for reparations, please email me at friendsofadostv@gmail.com. That's friendsofadostv@gmail.com.
Good evening on the West Coast. Good evening in the mountains. Good evening in the central. Good evening on the East Coast. You know exactly who it is, family. Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the Reparations Perspective, formerly Friends of ADOS TV. Welcome one and all to the live. Shout out to my early birds. Early is a new on time. I see you, ADOS children. I see you at 400 years old. Yes, thank you so much for joining the live today. You know, as I do every time I go live, I am about making the case for reparations, making the case for weaponizing our vote and socializing the suffering that we're undergoing. You know, because people get put to sleep when there's a Democratic trifecta in place. And I'm here to wake you all the way up and to enlist you to be in the demand for reparations in the trillions over multi-generations, because we are finished without it. We're not going to make it, family. We are a wealthless group. They have managed to neutralize us economically, and now they are coming for the vote. As I have said once, I have said a million times, that dollars bring dignity, and being poor makes us George Floyd, 9 minutes, 29 seconds, knee on the neck. Because the knee is on the neck of American descendant of chattel slavery round the clock, literally and figuratively. We are on the bottom as the anchor in the country our ancestors built with their lives, and myself and the reparationist movement are having none of it. This government is complicit on both sides of the aisle for tethering us to the bottom as the bottom caste, as the Dalits, if you will, in Kamala's country. We would be that, according to Martin Luther King Jr. when he visited India. Okay, so we're not having it. We are leaning in. I am here every day of the George Floyd case, the Chauvin trial, to give you the updates, because none of us have 7 hours. Well, some of us may, I don't, to sit up here and watch the whole thing. And intermittently, I can tell you the way I see it, and time permitting, share a few more nuggets with you of things I'm learning about the anti-Black racism, ADOC's Holocaust, over 400 years and counting. So with that being said, let's jump right in, because we are now at 6:07, and I want to use all the time I have before my next show at 7 to unpack what happened in today's events. Now, this is day 7. 3 Minneapolis Police Department officers took the stand today. And in addition to the officers who are experts in the use of force, crisis intervention training, and emergency medical response, was Sergeant Jody Steiger of the Los Angeles Police Department. Well, how are they bringing out experts? They are guilty. Hello, Rodney King, of the same things I've shared with you in a shows prior, that the FBI reported in 2016 that the KKK and the hi Jay, if you want to catch me live, I'm over on YouTube, the Reparationist Perspective. Thank you so much for joining the clubhouse. Yes, so like I was saying, in 2016, the FBI put out a report that white supremacist groups like the KKK and the skinheads and the neo-Nazis have infiltrated the police force all throughout the country. There's nothing different out here in Los Angeles for them to be pulling in an expert, Sergeant Jody Steiger. We've got our own George Floyd situations going on out here. Okay, so I don't know how folks is able to speak on it, and yet we don't have an executive order to deem these KKK, neo-Nazis, and the skinheads domestic terrorist groups. But they call us Black extremists for activating for the right to live, for the right to be economically justified, to have economic justice through reparations. We're darned Black extremist terrorists. We don't have an anti-lynch law yet, as Biden weaponizes what happened to George Floyd to give Asians protections when 68% of their assaults are verbal. So this just strikes me as, wow, how everybody can roll it off, trippingly off the tongue, what to do and what not to do. But I don't know of any police branch in all the country that isn't practicing on ADOX on the regular. But now all the experts want to come through and talk about it. But anyway, moving on. He testified as an outside expert on police training and use of force. Steiger will return to the witness stand tomorrow morning. Okay. Today ended abruptly following several law enforcement witnesses testifying about police use of force and medical assistance policies. Hennepin County District Judge Peter Cahill ended court abruptly this afternoon after privately speaking with both prosecution and defense attorneys. Yeah, prosecution is taking him to task. He has to end abruptly. The interruption came as prosecutor Steve Schleicher was questioning Sergeant Jody Steiger of the LAPD, an expert on police training and use of force, who will return to the stand tomorrow. Several law enforcement officers with the Minneapolis Police Department also testified on police training, use of force tactics, and de-escalation and providing medical assistance earlier today. So they'll be back at it tomorrow. Let's see what else happened. A crowd of onlookers does not excuse a police officer. Defense be trying it. From rendering aid. Police Department's medical support coordinator said. Officer Nicole McKenzie, the Minneapolis Police Department's medical support coordinator, told prosecutor Steve Schleicher that cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, can be started while waiting for paramedics to arrive. Defense is failing miserably trying to make this nonsense stick. He tried to blame it on the crowd, blame it on the rain, blame it on Floyd's underlying health conditions, his drug use. I mean, pick a reason. He just throwing anything at the wall to see what sticks. And that prosecutor keep serving him. So the crowd being upset and begging you to stop killing Mr. Floyd did not impede on you taking your knee off his neck so he could breathe. And it did not impede, once you killed him, it did not impede on you resuscitating him. By the time he got to the emergency room, he was in cardiac arrest for 1 hour. Woo! Ooh, child, the ghetto. The prosecution has called witnesses to the stand, including Minneapolis Police Chief Madaria Arredondo, who said that Chauvin had violated a range of department policies, including by not rendering aid to Floyd before the ambulance was on the scene. Floyd did not receive medical attention May 25th until 2 paramedics arrived. As police officers were arresting Floyd, bystander videos captured him repeatedly telling them he couldn't breathe. One officer can be heard telling Floyd that it takes a lot of oxygen to talk. McKenzie, who trains Minneapolis police officers in medical treatment, contradicted that statement Tuesday. Quote, there is a possibility somebody could be in respiratory distress and still be able to verbalize it, she said. Just because they're speaking doesn't mean they're breathing adequately. In his questioning of McKenzie, Chauvin's attorney, Eric Nelson, continued a line of questions that he has asked many other expert witnesses and bystanders to Floyd's arrest, suggesting that the onlookers at the scene, many of whom shouted at Chauvin to get off of Floyd, influenced Chauvin's actions that day and potentially hampered his ability to render aid. But he sure had his wits about him to dig his knee even tighter. He was getting off on the crowd's cries and distress. He was getting off on the distress. I've shared with you on prior Chauvin trial updates that this was the blood choke. Finally, he's got 18 complaints within the 19 years he's been there, 8 of which mirror what he finally executed with George Floyd. And Cahill will only allow the weakest 2 of said events before the jury, while allowing defense to bring in an incident from March 2019 of George Floyd ingesting drugs because he freaked out when the cops accosted him and didn't want the drugs to be caught on him, so he ingested them. And defense wants to use that to parallel this, which took his life, to try to prove that the drugs killed Mr. Floyd, not the knee on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. No. The drugs. Who cares if he was breathing just fine before the knee on the neck? Who cares if he's been living with COVID and underlying health conditions and drug abuse? White folks get rehab. George Floyd gets his life taken from him. I can't even fool with everybody else's form of racism when my people have been undergoing a 400+ year Holocaust. Hence the channel. Since the lamestream media won't talk about the anti-Black racism, but they'll weaponize what's happening to us to give protections to the Asians in all the coverage. Then I must do it here. It is what it is. Back to the text. McKenzie told Nelson that it is incredibly difficult to focus on a patient at a chaotic scene and that it's more difficult to assess a patient. Quote, does it make it more likely that you might miss signs if a patient is experiencing something? Nelson asked. McKenzie said it was possible. Schleicher quickly followed up and asked if a crowd of onlookers excuses a police officer from rendering aid. Only if they were physically getting themselves involved, she said. And they were not. The LA police sergeant testifies as use of force expert witness. The 26th witness in the Derek Chauvin murder trial is Sergeant Jody Steiger of the LAPD. He will testify as an outside expert on police training and use of force. Steiger is an aide to the Inspector General within the LAPD, which is an oversight entity. I can't tell. He said today, this afternoon, he is only sworn police officer that works for, he is the only sworn police officer that works for that unit. He said he has also trained thousands of officers as part of a course he developed that went over de-escalation, firearms manipulation, basic control tactics, and arrest control techniques. Then why can't they get their act together out here? Next, Minneapolis Police Medical Support Coordinator testifies. We just mentioned her, Nicole McKenzie, said as a medical support coordinator with the department, she provided first aid and medical training to recruits and officers. She added Chauvin has attended the training she conducts. First-degree murder. This was intentional. I wonder if they can change. I guess they better not. I don't know if they can even change the charges. This is first-degree murder. He murdered him in cold blood. I've shared with you on prior coverages about this case that Floyd was afraid of Chauvin. He would, whenever he was on the scene and they were doing security work in any of the venues, he would let a mutual buddy deal with Chauvin because he was a hothead, hostile to Floyd all the time. This was first-degree murder. Under cross, Derek Chauvin's attorney, Eric Nelson, entered a photo into evidence that Lieutenant Johnny Mercil agreed appeared to show Chauvin's knee on George Floyd's shoulder blade while the ambulance was on the scene. Here we go. Nelson asked Mercil, a use of force trainer with the Minneapolis Police Department, whether unconscious people can suddenly regain consciousness and fight, and whether a restraint requires pressure on both sides of the neck for the person to go unconscious. He is trying everything, y'all. Mercil responded yes to both questions. Mercil also testified that it generally takes less than 10 seconds for someone to go unconscious because of a neck restraint. Booyaka. With these questions, Nelson seems to be laying the groundwork that Floyd did not die from Chauvin's knee on his neck, as the prosecution has argued. Oh, he's trying everything. And the kitchen sink. On Monday, Nelson played a few seconds of bystander video side by side with footage from an officer's body cam and asked Minneapolis Police Chief Madaria Arredondo whether Chauvin's knee was on Floyd's neck. Arredondo agreed it appeared to show Chauvin's knee on Floyd's shoulder blade. But moments later, prosecutor Steve Schleicher got Arredondo to note that the clip played by Nelson depicted only the few seconds before Floyd was moved onto a stretcher and after paramedics had arrived. I wonder if it was after the paramedics invited him to take the knee off the neck. Is that where it moved to? The shoulder blade? Next. A use of force instructor with the Minneapolis Police Department testified that Chauvin's use of his knee on George Floyd's neck has never been a trained neck restraint in the department. It would not be appropriate for a suspect that was under control and handcuffed. Lieutenant Johnny Mercil said Tuesday, this morning, while viewing an image of Chauvin restraining Floyd with his knee on Floyd's neck, that such an action is not and has never been taught as a neck restraint under department training. He said, depending on the circumstances, such a tactic may not always be unauthorized, but would not be an appropriate use of force in the case where a person was under control and handcuffed. Ain't no way out. The lieutenant testified that in order to get a subject under control, officers are trained to use the lowest level of force possible in order to meet their objectives. Prosecutors showed an image from the police department's defense and control response training guide showing an unconscious neck restraint, meaning the kind of neck restraint that would render a person unconscious, would be allowed when the subject was displaying active aggression and not fall under tactics used for active resistance or passive resistance, as in the case of Mr. Floyd. Mercil also testified officers are shown how to do an unconscious neck restraint with their arms, but not using their legs during training. The prosecution showed documents Chauvin had received training on the department's use of force policies. First-degree murder. Mercil developed the curriculum and was one of the trainers providing the use of force training Chauvin would have taken. Intent is critical for proving the highest charge, legal expert says. I think they've done that. Prosecutors have called several witnesses to the stand from the Minneapolis Police Department, some of whom have helped establish what departmental policies and procedures Chauvin was trained in. Former Miami federal prosecutor David Weinstein explained the significance of their testimony. All of the testimony from police officers, training officers in the Chauvin trial, providing the jury with a basis to determine how a reasonable officer would have responded in the same situation. Intent is critical. In cross-exam, Eric Nelson also asked about training and other things not apparent to a citizen coming into play. Okay, so Lieutenant Johnny Mercil was a second witness to take the stand. He's currently on medical leave from the Minneapolis Police Department. He was a use of force instructor and has been with the department since 96. So the first witness called by prosecutor was Sergeant Kerr Yang, a crisis intervention training coordinator with the Minneapolis Police Department. Yang is 49, a 24-year veteran of the force. Through his testimony, prosecutors appear to be trying to convey that Chauvin had been trained in how to recognize people in various crises and safely respond. Defense attorney for a friend of George Floyd argues he can face prosecution if made to testify. A friend of George Floyd, who was with him on the day of his fatal arrest, appeared virtually in court Tuesday, as his lawyer said he does not want to testify in Derek Chauvin's murder trial and would invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Maurice Hall was in the passenger seat of the car on the day of Floyd's fatal encounter with police following a report of a counterfeit $20 bill. He appeared in court via video feed as he is currently in jail on unrelated allegations. He was dressed in civilian clothing. The jury was not in the room for the hearing on the motion. Adrian Cousins, a Hennepin County public defender, said this morning that any questions regarding his interaction and proximity to Floyd on May 25th, the day of his death, were potentially self-incriminating and could open Hall to prosecution, including potentially third-degree murder in a separate trial. Hall has been subpoenaed in the case by both the prosecution and defense, and previously filed notice that he planned to invoke his Fifth Amendment right not to testify in the case. The judge called Chauvin's defense to lay out the questions they intend to ask Hall, which included events leading up to Floyd and Hall's arrival at Cup Foods, their interactions in the store, including questions about the alleged counterfeit bill, whether Hall provided Floyd with controlled substances, Floyd's behavior in the car, among other things. Hennepin County District Judge Peter Cahill said the majority of those questions would fall within the right against self-incrimination, but left open the possibility of Hall only being asked to describe Floyd's behavior and condition in the car ahead of his arrest. The judge did not decide today on whether Hall would be forced to testify and asked the defense to draft what questions they would ask under those narrow guidelines, which he would then review. Chauvin absolutely violated policy. Minneapolis police chief testified. Okay, so that's getting into yesterday's testimony. So we'll stop right there. Let me see what you guys are up to. Any comments or questions you might have. Brian, thank you for joining the live. Brian C. Johnson, wondering why court ended so abruptly today. Looks like the state was mopping the floor with the defense too well. I think so. Woo, they are whooping ass and taking names on the prosecution side. S. Freedom Johnson, welcome to the live, my love. Blaming it on everything but the truth. You know it. Straight murder. Yes, cold-blooded first degree. Brian says only Black folks get blamed for their comorbidities when being killed by race soldiers. Absolutely. Sandra Del Reed 360, welcome to the live, my love. Okay, so I got a few more minutes to dig into some other things that I wanted to share. Let's see here. Before my other show, I'm probably going to jump off at 6:55, so I can set up everything and not be looking crazy trying to jump on the live, of the next live, that is. Okay, so I wanted to go back and talk about Donald Williams. His unflappable testimony is golden. He was my, y'all know I'll be mixing so many show concepts. I got 9 series I'm trying to crank out for y'all. Ooh, God is just moving. That's all I can say to that. Oh, let me come over here and at least thank you guys. Many of you in the chat have already supported the show. I can't thank you enough. For those of you who would like to support me in educating the masses and advocating for ADOX, please show your love at Cash App $FOADOS TV. $FOADOS TV. It's flying on the banner. And thank you all for your support. Your support is being used to offset the cost of doing the shows, the research it takes. I mean, this is a full-time job, and I'm trying to make more of a full-time job of it because I so love sharing the way I see it about everything. And this is such a great platform to share about the state of ADOX in this country and to win over more allies in our fight for reparations and a Black agenda. So this is something I am really, you guys enable me to do more of this, to crank out more shows from your support. You don't know what it means to me that you take time out of your day to come on live and share the way you see it. And just supporting all of my efforts. We've done some amazing things in the reparationist movement throughout the country. Have gotten politicians elected, mayors seated, reparations in certain places passed, working on our identity, our own identity. We must unflatten Blackness in order to unmask the failure of ADOX and the failure of this government to make ADOX whole before giving a pathway to citizenship to everyone else. They haven't dealt with the most horrific and cardinal of sins. Our ancestors' heinous chattel slave labor, which we are offsprings of. And they have legislated our oppression into the laws. And so my show and many like my show, we're just not going to sleep at the wheel. So that's what you guys enable me to do with your generous donations to the show. I can't thank you enough, truly. So let's go back. I wanted to talk about, I wanted to give Donald a little bit more love before I pray us out. I just wanted to share a little bit more about him. Okay. Donald Williams, he was, the martial arts expert. I just marvel at the way God put all the right people. It's like angels were surrounding Floyd. This reminds me so much of when the cameras were turned on to the diabolical racists down in the South when Martin Luther King and the children and the adults were marching for our civil rights. It's like when those cameras turned on and that news went viral, that's when the civil rights came. I can't help but to think that George Floyd, who is amongst our ancestors now, his execution for all the world to see is bringing about social and economic justice and inclusion for those of us who remain on the earth plane. And I marvel at the way God had those two experts in particular, Genevieve Hansen, firefighter. She reminds me of the abolitionist of our day, right? And Donald Williams. So Williams looked Derek Chauvin directly in the eyes while answering his lawyer's contentious questions. Woo-wee. You talk about brave. You talk about brave. My God. You see, they still have to live in Minneapolis. They don't have resources to uproot and leave and assume another identity. They put their lives on the line to come forward for Mr. Floyd. Even that gentleman, Charles, who did not want to testify, he asked to go home when they came to secure the scene, to tape it off. But he was on that stand crying crocodile tears, but he came. Folks are moving fearlessly. So I really felt that's what I felt when I observed the resolve of Mr. Williams when they were trying to paint him out to be angry. So that was day 2 of the murder trial. And it ended with the testimony of an eyewitness who has emerged as a central figure in the case. This, when he spoke, it's like you could just go ahead and pass a plate. Donald Williams III, a mixed martial arts MMA fighter and former wrestler, who is a witness for the prosecution, testified beginning Monday about his experience and knowledge surrounding the topic of chokeholds in relation to how Chauvin applied pressure to Floyd's neck. Can you imagine looking Chauvin in the eye as Chauvin's defense is grilling him? That's who you are, black man. That's who you are. That's it. That's God. Fearless. Skin of bronze, eyes of fire, hair of wool. Ooh, let me not get metaphysical on y'all. Stay with the text. Williams offered the unparalleled combination of first personal and professional perspectives that gave him an extra level of credibility despite his obvious scorn and disdain for Chauvin, both of which came across clearly to TV viewers. It was also apparent that Eric Nelson, Chauvin's lawyer, was trying to antagonize Williams, who kept his cool. He told that Mickey Vicky, I stayed in my body. Pass the plate. Y'all can just go and deliberate. Oh my God, it was fire. That's who you are, black man. He represented all y'all. He kept his cool throughout the entire cross-examination and said, "You will not label me an angry black man." As you were killing my brother, I called you out on it. It's the only time you looked up from killing my brother was when I asked you about the blood choke. And you looked at me like, yes, correct. The defense is, Keith Boykin says, the defense questioning of Donald Williams was offensive. Derek Chauvin was not in an MMA match. George Floyd was not going to rise up from unconsciousness and start fighting 4 cops while he was in handcuffs. And Williams is not an angry black man just because he spoke up. Ooh, he referred to the kneeling restraint used by Chauvin as a blood choke. I told y'all, 8 prior incidences of 18 and 19 years. He got 8 other incidences to practice what he completed on Mr. George Floyd. And everybody's coming forward about the right thing to do, and you couldn't fire this Mickey Vicky? Now the world is seeing y'all want to talk about it. I got a problem with that. Because the like of Chauvin is in all of our black communities throughout this country. Nelson has worked for Chauvin to get him off for all the other incidences. Not all. I'd have to check the records to say which one specifically, but this is not Nelson's first time at the rodeo defending the likes of Chauvin. He's gotten him off on the other counts. But the chickens have come home to roost, have they not? I believe I witnessed a murder when asked his thoughts as came upon the scene of the alleged crime in Minneapolis last Memorial Day. Williams explained that's why he called the police on Chauvin. He just pretty much killed this guy that wasn't resisting arrest. Williams can be heard on audio of his 911 call that was played in court on Tuesday. On Tuesday, Williams kept that same energy and then some as he was cross-examined by Nelson. This thing got some typos. Who tried to use the former wrestler's experience grappling against him to no avail. Williams was unflappable and at times seems to be growing exasperated of being asked questions that anybody who had seen the video of Floyd's death, everybody in the courtroom knew the answer to. Oh, he was grace under fire. A key exchange came as Nelson appeared to be asking questions to get a rise out of Williams, who refused to take the bait and willingly admitted to his own words that were anything but incriminating. Derek Chauvin's defense attorney, do you recall saying, "I dare you to touch me like that? I swear I'll slap the fuck out of both of you"? Donald Williams, yeah, I did. I meant it. You can't pay me out to be angry. This whole thing just gives me life. Each time Nelson asked Williams if he called the former police officer names when he was on Floyd's neck, Williams looked Chauvin dead in his eyes while answering in the affirmative. Okay, so picture this. Chauvin all masked up. And the defense asks you, You called Chauvin a bum. You called him a fucking bum. You called him a pussy ass bitch. I said what I said. Ooh-wee. Fire. As soon as the eyewitness Donald Williams suggests his own race was the same as George Floyd's, I seen another man like me. Derek Chauvin's defense attorney objects. And that's why they had that 16-page dossier profiling us to make sure the likes of me would not be in that jury. The likes of you would not be in that jury pool. Williams' compelling testimony on Tuesday followed his description of Floyd dying after Chauvin kneeled on his neck. The knee was diagonal across the throat, Williams testified. The officer on top was shimmying to actually get the final choke in while he was on top. The kill choke. Damning testimony. They could have gone on to deliberate. That case is open and shut. The overall strategy from Chauvin's defense team seems to be to try to discredit witness accounts and to blame Floyd's death on his drug use despite medical examiners determining the cause of death as a homicide. So that's one that's been open, family. That's an article that's been open since Mr. Williams testified. I wanted to read it with y'all because it's just rich. I see the face of God in Williams, the voice of God in Williams, the body temple of the Spirit of the living God in Mr. Williams, like I do you. We could just pass the plate. That was rich. Let me see what y'all got to say about it. Oh, that was fun. I've been wanting to do that one for a while, family. I had a little time. Thank you for indulging me. Oh my God, I could be so silly, but these things just give me life. This is called winning, y'all. This is called winning. I'm going to read your comments. I'm going to pray us out and go start the other show. Let's see here. Okay. Thank you, ADOS Truth. I love you, Black and Strong, for putting my email address, my Gmail, friends of ADOS TV at Gmail. If you too want to get into this fight for reparations and a Black agenda. Toolbox Evolution, you are never late, darling. You always on time. It doesn't matter. The archives are there. I'm going to be here. It doesn't matter if I'm talking to myself. I'm on my square. Toolbox Evolution says, greetings, sis and family. Sis, you've been doing a truly magnificent job. Oh, now you know what? That's my Oscar, my Emmy, and my Tony. When I hear from Anox telling me I'm doing the damn thing, that is well with my soul, family. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I got, like I said, God just set up here and birthed like 9 series through me. And I'll be on tomorrow afternoon. Media engagement recommended that I come on and give y'all midday. So that's going to be as the world of ADOX turns. That's my hot topic segment. Gonna be talking about the things we're accomplishing out here as the grassroots. We're going to be talking about just relevant topics on COVID, anything that strikes me as something I need to speak on. Y'all know me and I was born to talk. I'm going to be reading and talking. That's all I do over here. And I love it, and I love y'all. Love that the channel is growing. Oh, thank you so much, Brian. Oh, that thrills me through and through. Oh, yeah. God is using me in a mighty big way. As he is using, she is using, it is using you guys. You know, God is waiting on your yes. And y'all are doing it. And that's why I'm here, to just do it with y'all. Toolbox is talking to Brian. Did you see Brother Super Cop? Brother was bad. I don't know. Are you talking about Chief Arredondo? I'm not sure. Yes, he has a fire resume. Okay, I don't know. Great show, sis. JR 118, thank you, my love, from ADOS, New Jersey. Yes, now let me help you understand. I may not be moving with the ADOS HQ, but you can't take away my lineage. I put the C in there for chattel and to avoid any lawsuits from HQ. So know that we are family. I got all my ADOS with me. Hey, hey, hey. We are family. That's right. It doesn't matter. I'm working with all grassroots and allies. Leaving HQ was like a boulder lifted off my wings. That's why you see me giving birth to all this richness. I ain't got nobody telling me I can't. Okay? So welcome, ADOS, New Jersey. I love the ADOS movement. We are the movement. We started the movement. I'm going to always give us credit for that. HQ is a federation, as Black Lives Matter Federation is to the grassroots. We did this. And I will never tell it any other way, because that is the TR root. I couldn't believe how long it went on. I appreciate that Derek Chauvin has to listen to this brother who's way superseded him. Oh, you're talking about Arredondo, I do believe, Toolbox. Yes. Isn't it rich? You take a black man's life and it's the black man's voices rising from the earth to convict this man. It is just rich. Woo-wee. That's why I got to cover it every day, because I'm going to be engaged every day. Might as well bring it to you. Brian says at Toolbox Evolution, yes, I think that's why they cut court today early. That man, Jody, was light years ahead of mediocre Chauvin. Wow. Y'all talking about Jody. Okay. Yes. Okay. I think his last name is Mercil, M-E-R-C-I-L. You can't paint me out to be angry. Silence. That's right, Toolbox. That's right. Okay, let's see what else. Oh, I keep clicking on the wrong thing. It was fire, family. Yes, William said all of that. Yes, he did. He gave me life. Defense tried to smear him early on by asking if he cursed at the race soldier. Ugh, fail. Epic fail. He said, I remain professional. Woo, weren't you proud, Toolbox? Like I said before, that entire department needs to be investigated by the FBI. You better know it. Brian, you are absolutely right. They're all trying to come off like little angels. Always remember, Chauvin had 18 complaints in 19 years, 8 of which mirrored what he finally delivered on George Floyd. He was practicing the kill choke on 8 other people and remained on the force. And Nelson got him off in a few of those instances. I have to go and research that part and bring it to you tomorrow. Like I said, okay, before, the entire department needs to be investigated by the FBI. Wait, what? Who got him off? Nelson, the same defense attorney that's repping him right now, has gotten him off. There were 8 other incidents before George Floyd. They didn't lead to the execution. He didn't finish the kill choke, the blood choke on the other 8 victims. Cahill will only allow prosecutors to present 2 of those 8, the weakest 2 of those 8 complaints to the prosecution, when 8 of them paralleled what he did to Mr. Floyd to completion. Like I told y'all, he was getting off on the crowd's distress as he murdered George Floyd. He didn't care about the cameras. He didn't care about none of that. He was on his mission. It is first-degree murder. I'm glad she put PayPal in there, payday. Oh, thank you, my love. Yes, Williams. Yes, Williams pulled 0 punches. That's right, Brian. All right, fam. Gotta run. Be well. You too. All right, be well. Thank you. Oh, Erie Blackfire. Yes. Yes, love. Hey now, love you in B1. Yes, B1, FBA, ADOX, Badoax, ADOX. Okay. Word says definitely a preacher every time. Oh, thank you. That fire of God is just running through me. No, the last brother today, he was fired. The brother's tearing them up. I'm so pleased. Get him off 8 times. Now, I don't know if Nelson got him off all 8 times. I'm going to research that and bring you the real deal. I don't want to get fiction over here. Oh, my God, a full psychopath. As the FBI said, Toolbox, the police force throughout the country is overwrought with the likes of Chauvin, as they sit up here and try to make it about a few bad apples. No, honey, they need to wipe this clean and start all over and let the community do a better job of hiring them. Because they let us down, allowing them their First Amendment right to associate with the KKK, the skinheads and the neo-Nazis, and still get hired as police. I've done that show already. I'll find it and repeat it tomorrow because I'm like 4 minutes from having to go live on the other show. Yeah, okay, family. With that said, let me pray us out. Thank you so much. I want to share with you that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever ADOX and its allies are, God truly is, because, family, you are the face of God. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. If I don't see you on my next show, dear immigrants, because of ADOX, I'll see you tomorrow for more Chauvin trial updates, day 8. Until, I love you, Black. I love you strong. Peace, family.